At 8:17 on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday night, a man sits on the edge of his couch holding a phone that still works. The screen is not cracked. The battery is weaker than it used to be, but it gets through the day if he is not careless. The camera is fine. The app's open. Messages arrive. Calls go through. Nothing is actually wrong with it. And yet, for the past 20 minutes, he has been watching videos about the newest model, as if his current phone has betrayed him. The new one is thinner, faster, cleaner. The edges are sharper. The photos look brighter. The marketing language has that polished, surgical quality modern advertising loves. Revolutionary, powerful, reimagined, smarter than ever. He feels a little restless, a little bored, a little tired of seeing the same object in his hand every day. And that feeling, small as it seems, has probably done more damage to more people's finances than most obvious emergencies ever will. Because one of the quietest ways wealth gets destroyed is not through catastrophe, it is through upgrading functional things out of boredom. The phone that still works, the car that still drives, the couch that still holds a body, the dining table that still does exactly what tables have done for centuries. The lamp, the television, the watch, the laptop, the kitchen appliance, the bag, the headphones, the desk chair, the dresser, the mattress base, the coffee machine, the perfectly acceptable thing that has committed only one unforgivable crime in the modern economy. It has become familiar. That is the hidden mechanism. A lot of people think unnecessary upgrades are mainly about status, vanity, or poor discipline. Sometimes they are, but very often they are about something duller and more dangerous. Novelty hunger. Modern life trains people to misinterpret boredom as obsolescence. You use the same phone every day, so it starts feeling old before it is truly inadequate. You drive the same car long enough that the cabin begins to feel smaller, duller, less rewarding, even though the engine still turns over every morning without protest. You sit on the same couch, see the same coffee table, open the same refrigerator, and because the object has stopped producing stimulation, the mind begins to whisper a lie. Maybe it is time for something better. That whisper is expensive. Not because buying new things is always wrong. Sometimes replacing or upgrading is rational, practical, overdue, even wise. The problem begins when the trigger is not failure, inefficiency, safety, or meaningful need. The trigger is emotional fatigue. That distinction matters enormously, because once boredom becomes an acceptable reason to upgrade functional things, your money stops building your future and starts entertaining your nervous system. And your nervous system has very expensive taste. A working phone upgraded 2 years early is not just a nicer rectangle in your pocket. It is hundreds or thousands of dollars that could have stayed invested, reduced debt, built a larger cash reserve, or simply remained unclaimed by lifestyle inflation. A functioning car traded in because it no longer feels exciting is not merely transportation refreshed. It is usually depreciation reset, insurance possibly increased, registration renewed at a higher value, financing reintroduced, and another long stretch of paying for movement you already had. The same thing happens inside homes, though people notice it less there because furniture moves more slowly than electronics. A perfectly usable sofa begins to feel stale. A dining table seems too ordinary. The bedroom set feels dated. The media console no longer fits the updated aesthetic. Nothing has broken, nothing is collapsing. But the eye gets bored before the object gets useless, and boredom starts dressing itself up as a design need. This is how money leaks out of respectable lives. Not in flames, in refreshes. The real danger is that these upgrades often feel responsible in the moment. The phone company spreads the cost across monthly payments. The car dealership frames the trade as an easy transition. The furniture retailer offers financing, delivery, protection plans, and the illusion that the purchase belongs to a category called home improvement rather than lifestyle expansion. Everything is softened. And soft spending is often the most dangerous spending because it avoids triggering your internal alarm. No one feels reckless replacing a couch with another couch. No one feels financially irresponsible upgrading a phone through a carrier plan. No one says, I am now choosing a smaller future portfolio in exchange for new upholstery and a slightly better camera. They say something gentler. I deserve this. It was time. The old one was getting old. I use it every day. There was a deal. That last phrase has probably financed more unnecessary upgrades than almost any other sentence in consumer history. The deal is almost never the deal people think it is. It is a trade. Cash or credit leaves your life. The clock on depreciation starts again. The previous object, which could have continued serving you at a marginal cost close to zero, gets replaced by an object at the beginning of its most expensive phase. That is the part people miss. Functional things become cheaper the longer they keep functioning. A paid-off car that still runs well becomes more financially beautiful every month it survives, without demanding absurd repair costs. A phone kept beyond the cultural upgrade cycle becomes cheaper and cheaper per year of use. A couch that is not glamorous but still comfortable grows more economical with every additional year it remains in place. A dining table that continues to hold plates without drama may be one of the least appreciated financial allies in the house. But appreciation is the problem. Now, because people do not upgrade many of these things due to rising necessity, they upgrade because the objects stop producing emotional return. That is worth sitting with for a second. A functional object can become financially invisible precisely when it is doing its job well. It stops demanding attention. It becomes part of the background. And in a culture that confuses stimulation with value, background usefulness gets punished. The phone that simply works does not thrill you anymore. The car that reliably starts does not flatter your ego anymore. The furniture that quietly serves daily life does not make the room feel new anymore. So people replace service with sensation. And sensation is short-lived. That is why boredom-based upgrading is such a silent wealth destroyer. And the pleasure spike fades far faster than the financial consequences do. The new phone feels new for a few weeks, maybe a couple of months if the novelty lands well. Then it becomes the phone. The upgraded car smells luxurious for a little while, until it becomes the car. The furniture refresh changes the room, gives life a brief cinematic glow, then settles into normalcy. The mind resets quickly. The payments do not. This is the same trap that drives a lot of recurring dissatisfaction in modern life. People keep trying to solve an emotional issue with material rotation. They think the object has become inadequate when the truth is often simpler. They got used to it. And getting used to things is not a design flaw. It is part of being human. If you do not understand that, you can spend a shocking amount of money trying to outrun adaptation. You cannot outrun it. You can only keep funding it. That is why the smartest financial move is often not buying worse things or denying yourself comfort. It is learning to distinguish between functional decline and emotional boredom. A phone that crashes constantly cannot support your work or creates real inefficiency may deserve replacement. A car that is becoming mechanically unreliable, unsafe, or irrationally expensive to repair may deserve replacement. Furniture that causes pain no longer fits your space or is materially failing may deserve replacement. Those are need-based upgrades, very different category. Boredom-based upgrades feel different when you examine them honestly. The old thing still works. It still performs its central job. What has declined is not capability, but excitement. The object is no longer feeding identity, novelty, or stimulation at the level it once did. That is not a functional problem. That is a psychological moment with a price tag attached. And if you are not careful, that moment becomes a recurring tax on your wealth. Phones are perhaps the clearest example because the cycle is engineered so aggressively. Manufacturers and carriers have built entire business models around shortening emotional satisfaction before functional usefulness is actually over. Tiny camera improvements, slightly faster chips, a new finish, a new shape, a brighter screen, a cleaner commercial. The device in your hand remains competent, but the environment around you is designed to make competence feel embarrassing. That is not neutral, it is a pressure system. And it works because the monthly payment model disguises the size of the decision. People who would hesitate at paying a large sum outright will casually accept a smaller monthly number folded into a bill they already pay. But smaller monthly numbers, when repeated across multiple categories, are exactly how future cash flow gets colonized. The same thing happens with cars, only the damage is often much larger. A car is one of the most expensive boredom upgrades people make because the transaction contains so many extra layers: sales tax, registration, financing, insurance changes, dealership markup, trade-in losses, depreciation that hits hardest in earlier years. People convince themselves they are simply moving from one vehicle to another, when financially they are often stepping off a plateau of relative efficiency and back onto the steep part of the cost curve. A paid-off reliable car is boring in the best possible way. It turns transportation into infrastructure rather than entertainment. It lets cash remain available for stronger uses. It lowers stress. It widens margin. Yet people routinely abandon this position not because the car failed, but because it stopped making them feel upgraded inside their own life. That is an emotional trade masquerading as a practical one. Furniture upgrades are quieter still, and because they happen inside the home, people often classify them as harmless lifestyle refreshes. But the money involved can be enormous, especially when one furniture upgrade triggers a cascade. New couch means the rug looks tired. A new rug means the curtains feel wrong. New bedroom set makes the old lamps look cheap. New dining table makes the chairs look mismatched. Soon the home is no longer being maintained. It is being re-scripted. And every re-script costs, not only in cash, in delivery fees, assembly, disposal, extra decor, financing, maintenance, and often the subtle pressure to buy more things to support the new visual standard. One upgrade rarely arrives alone. It often pulls a convoy behind it. This is what makes boredom so financially dangerous. It does not stay in its lane. It spreads. You upgrade the phone, and suddenly the headphones feel old. You change the couch, and the room wants a different coffee table. You replace the car, and now the garage, accessories, detailing habits, and insurance profile all change. The original desire was small. The ecosystem it creates is not. Midway through this, it helps to reframe the issue in a harsher but more accurate way. When you upgrade functional things out of boredom, you are often paying premium prices to solve a temporary emotional flatness. That flatness was going to pass anyway. This is why the smartest countermove is usually not immediate self-denial. It is delay. Delay is where truth shows up. If you feel an urge to upgrade something functional, wait long enough to separate the object from the mood. 30 days for smaller decisions. Longer for cars, major electronics, or furniture. Keep using the existing thing. Notice whether the urge remains or whether it was really attached to stress, comparison, boredom, or an advertising wave that has already started fading. Then a surprising number of upgrade desires do not survive contact with time. They were emotional weather, not strategic need. This is especially true when life feels repetitive, stagnant, or overworked. People often mistake a need for change in their routine, their energy, or their identity for a need to change objects. The new phone becomes a substitute for a new challenge. The upgraded car becomes a substitute for momentum. The redesigned room becomes a substitute for emotional freshness. Sometimes the real need is not a purchase at all. It is rest, stimulation of a different kind, a trip, a project, a habit change, a walk, a difficult conversation, something alive. But objects are easier than self-examination, so people shop. Then they call the resulting expense self-care or productivity or improvement. And none of this means you should never buy nice things. It means nice things should answer real problems, support real usage, or create enduring value rather than briefly interrupt boredom. A better chair that improves your body during thousands of hours of work can be wise. A safer car with a meaningful efficiency or reliability benefit can be wise. A phone upgrade tied to actual work demands can be wise. Furniture replacement that truly improves comfort or function can be wise. The point is not minimalism for its own sake. The point is refusing to let emotional restlessness dictate capital allocation. Because that is what these decisions really are. Not taste decisions. Capital decisions. Money that leaves for boredom upgrades does not disappear only once. It also stops doing other things. It stops reducing debt. It stops compounding. It stops strengthening your emergency fund. It stops buying future flexibility. It stops protecting you from the next round of inflation, the next job disruption, the next ugly surprise life will inevitably produce. That is opportunity cost, and it is most brutal when attached to objects that were already doing their jobs. A functioning phone upgraded 3 years early might cost more than the phone itself, when measured against what that money could have become if invested or left unspent. A car trade driven mostly by restlessness can quietly erase years of potential financial progress. Furniture refreshes done for novelty rather than need can absorb capital that would have been far more powerful in assets than in upholstery. The strange thing is that from the outside, these choices often look normal. That is why they go unchallenged. Nobody stages an intervention because you bought a new couch. Nobody gasps because you upgraded your phone. Nobody sees a car trade and says, there goes $15,000 of future compounding, because the previous vehicle had become emotionally familiar. But that may be exactly what happened. The most dangerous financial mistakes are often the ones society labels ordinary. So what does a better standard look like? It starts with a simple rule. Do not upgrade functional things unless the current version is creating meaningful friction, measurable inefficiency, safety risk, ongoing unreasonable repair cost, or a genuinely valuable increase in daily life that will last longer than novelty. That is a much stricter filter than most people use, and it should be. Because the default human brain is terrible at separating real utility from boredom relief when a sleek product page is involved. A second rule helps too. When something still works, calculate the beauty of keeping it, not in an abstract moral sense, in hard numbers. How much longer could you use the current phone if you replaced the battery or kept expectations normal? How many more years could the car reasonably serve if maintained properly? How much actual comfort does the current furniture still provide if you stop comparing it to staged rooms on a screen? What is the monthly freedom created by not reintroducing a payment, not resetting depreciation, not financing a mood? Those numbers are motivating in a way marketing rarely wants you to see. Because functional longevity is one of the most underappreciated wealth-building tools available to ordinary people. Keeping serviceable things in service is not glamorous. It does not produce social media content. It does not make strangers notice you. But it quietly preserves the one ingredient. Financial stability depends on more than almost anything else. Margin, the gap between what you earn and what your life consumes. Every unnecessary upgrade narrows that gap. Every year you resist boredom spending on big-ticket functional items protects it, and protected margin becomes savings, investments, debt freedom, patience, peace. Go back to the man on the couch holding the phone that still works. In one version of the story, he upgrades tonight. The excitement lasts. Then it fades. The payment remains. Next year, the cycle repeats with something else. A phone, a car, a room, a desk, a watch, a tablet. The life keeps getting refreshed, but the finances never seem to deepen. In the other version, he pauses. He notices the boredom for what it is. He keeps the working phone. He redirects the money. A year later, maybe 2, the same object in his hand feels even less impressive than before. But something else has changed. His savings are stronger. His investments are larger. His dependence on newness has weakened. He is no longer using purchases to punctuate routine. That second life looks quieter. It is also usually richer. Because wealth is not built only by earning more or investing cleverly. It is also built by refusing to keep paying full price for things that already serve you well enough. Functional phones, cars, And furniture become silent wealth destroyers over time only when boredom is allowed to overrule function. If you reverse that relationship, those same objects become allies. The boring phone becomes deferred spending. The older car becomes preserved cash flow. The familiar couch becomes proof that a house can serve life without constantly auditioning for a new aesthetic. And once you understand that, a strange thing happens. Boredom stops sounding like a shopping signal. It starts sounding like a warning. Not that your possessions have failed you, that your attention is trying to spend money it does not need to spend.